In the summer of 1936, Max Hahn and his wife were casually walking along Red Creek in London, Texas, when they stumbled upon a curious sight, something unusual protruding from a chunk of rock. Initially, it appeared to be a random piece of wood, but upon further investigation, they discovered something extraordinary, a hammer, partially encased in rock, that would go on to become one of the most debated artifacts in archaeological history. At first, the discovery seemed like an ordinary find. A hammer, after all, was a tool that had been in use by humans for centuries. However, the true significance of this hammer wouldn't be realized until much later, and what they found would challenge conventional understandings of history and archaeology. Max and his wife were initially unsure of the significance of their find, but they carefully took the piece home. It wasn't until a decade later, in the mid-1940s, that their son decided to crack open the rock. To his astonishment, inside, he found the hammerhead, an artifact that would defy explanation and leave experts scratching their heads for decades to come. The hammer appeared relatively simple, 6 inches of iron for the head, affixed to a wooden handle. Its design seemed to fit the kind of tools used by miners in the 19th century. A straightforward object, nothing particularly mysterious about it, at first glance. However, when experts began to study the hammer, it was clear that something was far from ordinary about this artifact. One of the most puzzling aspects of the hammer was its composition. When scientists analyzed the iron head, they found that it was 96.6% pure iron, which was an astounding discovery. In the 19th century, the process of smelting iron was far more primitive than it is today. The level of purity found in the hammer would have been difficult, if not impossible, to achieve with the available technology of the time. For comparison, most iron tools and weapons from the 19th century would contain far more impurities, such as carbon, sulfur, and other elements. The purity of the iron in this hammer raised immediate questions. How could a hammer of this quality exist, particularly in the 1800s, when the technology to produce such pure iron was not available? The answer seemed to defy logic, unless, of course, the hammer was far older than anyone could have imagined. Another perplexing feature was the hammer's wooden handle. Upon closer inspection, it was noted that the wood appeared to be partially fossilized. Fossilization typically takes thousands or even millions of years, yet this was a relatively recent tool. The idea that the wooden handle had undergone such a process within just a few decades, or perhaps even a century, was difficult to accept. The wood didn't just appear old, it exhibited qualities that suggested it had been